Mousasi. Jaeger Mousasi, known for his championship bouts at 185s and 205s across numerous promotions. Lately is a Bellator fighter. Bellator got acquired by PFL, and now Mousasi is complaining about not being able to get a fight, asking for any kind of information from the PFL, claiming that they're getting radio silence. And let me tell you, there's so much contradiction between Jaeger Mousasi and his very own manager, Nima Safapour. So recently, there was an interview that you can all go watch from MMA Junkie, Mike Bond. He had an interview with Jaeger Mousasi, and of course the question of where you been at comes up. Jaeger's quick to blame it on the PFL, that after being acquired by the PFL hasn't been accommodating any of his questions. And it seems, according to Jaeger, radio silence. He says they haven't heard anything. Yet, immediately, he starts mentioning something about pay. Now, just to lay a base foundation, I'm going to use Ryan Bader as an example. When Ryan Bader came to Bellator from the UFC, coming off wins in the UFC, he had mentioned his pay, and he talked a little bit of details. Example one, he actually took a pay cut. He went from 120, I believe, to show and fight, and a little bit of a bonus to win, but 120 base guaranteed to just show up and fight. He went from that to 100,000 with no win bonus in the Bellator. However, it will be made up for with sponsorships, which the UFC notoriously has a chokehold on. Now, I can't remember right now, but there's other fighters that have mentioned the same thing, where they get paid 100 flat, but they can use sponsorships, and they don't have a restrictive contract, so they can go fight somewhere else as long as the Bellator is okay with it. I've always wondered how much, besides the $1 million jackpot if you win the seasons in PFL, how much do you actually get paid in the PFL? I believe I haven't seen numbers at all regarding payments outside, again, of that $1 million winner. Now, I don't know how much Jaeger Mousasi was getting paid by Bellator, being a big household name with Show Me the Money, which kind of caught fire there for a little bit in the UFC as he was in a win streak. Keep in mind, he also left the UFC. He did not renegotiate, and he was coming off a huge win against Chris Weidman and a pretty decent win streak. He decides to not renegotiate with the UFC, goes to Bellator. How much money could he have really been making with Bellator? He goes on to have a pretty decent career in Bellator, even becoming the middleweight champion, 185-pound champion. But after losing back-to-back fights against Johnny Eblen and Fabian Edwards, it's been pretty much radio silent from his end. No social media, no interviews, nothing. As stated in the beginning of the video, he claims, shortly after saying radio silence on PFL's end, that PFL does not want to pay him out what he was getting paid out in Bellator. I thought they were being radio silent. Immediately, he's looking like a clown. He is exposing himself for being a liar. He even decides to kind of indirectly rank the promotions by saying UFC didn't pay much, but they gave me 3 fights a year. When I went to Bellator, they paid a lot more, but I fought a lot less. And now with PFL, nothing. He is aware that PFL has mentioned they are interested in keeping only the top 10, giving us hope that we will see Jaeger hopefully sooner than later. Days later, Gegard Mousasi's manager, Nima Safapour, decides to also have an interview with MMA Junkie, claiming that they have been in talks, but they're not really offering a logical or reasonable deal for Gegard Mousasi. Safapour continues by trying to make a point that since when is offering a fighter in a short notice a fight above their weight class a real offer? As if we haven't seen it done before. Gegard used to fight at heavyweight, okay? But according to Safapour, since when has that been a real offer? They used John Jones as an example, that it took John Jones a whole year to bulk up properly. So how does this make sense for Mousasi? First of all, wrong. It took Jones multiple years to bulk up. But I see what they're saying. However, again, Mousasi has fought at 205s and even in Strikeforce fought pretty big boys and won. He would get victories over heavyweights. So what's the problem now? And the most insulting, the most embarrassing part of all of this is that while they're complaining about weight, they have the nerve to say, hey, we were asking for Ray Cooper at middleweight. Ray Cooper, guys, is a 155 pounder who doesn't like cutting weight, so he went up to 170, had some pretty fun fights there, and then recently, last minute replacements, he went up to 185s, and on fight night, stepped on the scale. Keep in mind, Ray Cooper's 5'7", stepped on the scale at 182. This is the guy that, according to Safapour and Mousasi, that's the guy that they were asking for, and that it was too much for the PFL. No, what I beg to differ is to see an absolute MMA warrior become probably one of the biggest divas that we've seen today. I'm always going to have respect for Mousasi in the sense of his fighting ability. Starting in Strikeforce, I remember him going up to heavyweights, beating up Brett Rogers, who was super red hot at that moment for having a very competitive fight with Fedor Emelianenko. Fights against monsters that were young and hungry, like Jacare Souza, Renato Sobral, you name it. Mousasi was a warrior and continued to be a warrior even up to his UFC days, having bangers with Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman, Lyoto Machida. I mean, he fought and beat them all. Now, with 3 fights left in his contract with Bellator when the merger happened, I really am hoping to see Gegard soon here. Whether it fits in between seasons, like the CEO of PFL has mentioned, they will have one-off pay-per-views. We could probably see Gegard Mousasi in a super fight, or maybe on the next middleweight season tournament. Hopefully we can see Gegard compete there and complete, and that they can honor his 3-fight deal still left in his contract. Let me end by reminding you guys, for someone that was quick to say, hey, radio silence, they don't even get back to us. Safapour and Mousasi were quick to know exactly why there's a freeze on negotiations. So much for radio silence, right guys?